Hi, I'm Father Michael Orsi. I'm your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program which brings you the big G for the gospel of Jesus Christ and the little g, all the good things that people do to put that gospel of life into action. Hey gang, you know, we hear a lot of things on this program from a lot of people who do some really, really great things in the cause of human life. It's not too often, though, that we have on someone who is a medical doctor, MD, who specializes in OB-GYN. You know, she brings babies into the world and takes care of women. And she is involved with the Charlotte Lozier Institute, a pro-life organization. She'll tell us about that. And she is also involved with the Heritage Foundation. And Heritage Foundation is a great, great group who is involved oftentimes with political issues. And don't kid yourself, ladies and gentlemen, as I've told you many times, abortion is a political issue. Politics and morality go together, and the pro-death lobby knows it very well. And that's why they try to put a very positive spin on abortion. It's not only something that is a choice, but now it is something that is a good thing to do. So we have Dr. Kathryn Carnahan, and she says she's a doctor, but you look like a high school kid to me. How long you at a medical school?
I've been doing OB/GYN almost 7 years,
Wow.
including my
Wow,
training.
that's
I'm
fantastic.
qualified.
That's fantastic. Tell us about how you got involved with the pro-life movement.
Sure. Before I went to medical school, I worked as a health policy analyst with the Heritage Foundation, which is how I got involved with them. And my focus was really more on healthcare policy, but I really am interested in health systems and that type of thing. When I went to medical school, I was very drawn to the field of OB/GYN because I really felt passionate about helping women and helping women through things that are certainly medical, but also matter a great deal for their personal lives. And that came down to starting families and helping women through things that can be really traumatic. One of those things is, an unplanned pregnancy or that type of thing. And I just really developed a heart for working through those types of those moments with women. And so as I became more involved in OB/GYN, I was really convicted more and more by how abortion affects women. The fact that, we know when life begins, the biological facts, point us to that. And, in this country, the focus on our human rights, and the first of those among many is the right to human life.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You went to medical school. Could you tell us what medical school you went to?
I went to the Medical College of Wisconsin.
That's fantastic. And I want to ask you this question. I'm told that sometimes medical schools can make it difficult on students, doctors, and even nurses, that they want them to participate in abortions. Did that happen to you?
It didn't happen to me so much in medical school because where I trained, there were several hospitals that training could take place at. Where I did my medical school training in OB/GYN was a Catholic hospital, and so it didn't really come up for me there.
Well, good, because if it came up at a Catholic hospital, old Father O would give him the old knuckle sandwich. Okay, continue.
But, it is definitely something that I think students are faced with more and more, especially in more academic settings where, there is pressure to at least be in the room or be present for abortions or to be involved in abortion counseling. And certainly, there are programs out there that are pushing for that to be more and more the case, for abortion training to be more opt out, which means that it's kind of the default that you do abortion training, and you have to really speak out and say, no, I really don't want to be involved in that.
You said that you had a heart for being a OB-GYN, but also being pro-life. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, could you tell us, how you brought this together in your practice? What makes your practice different from some other OB-GYN's practice? Okay?
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of different ways. One issue that comes up quite a lot, not very frequently, but when it does, it's really important, I think, to get it right, is when patients receive diagnoses of Down syndrome or other genetic anomalies or other fetal anomalies. This is a timing when counseling for women is very crucial. And a lot of the time, the messaging that women receive when they see like a maternal fetal medicine specialist or other OBGYNs is an emphasis on ending the pregnancy. And that's something where, I feel really passionate about making sure that women understand that they can continue the pregnancy, they can carry the baby to term. And, there is support for that. I would support that.
Do they know that you are a pro-life doctor when they come to you, or are they kind of surprised that you're saying to them, whoa, there's another part to this story, that what we can do for you and help you?
Yeah, a lot of patients do see me because through word of mouth, they're aware that of that stance that I have. I've had some patients who have been sent to me specifically for consultation for those types of questions of, if I wanted to continue my pregnancy, what would that look like? How could you help me or support me? And then other patients, I have lots of patients who, don't know that background for me. And, as a doctor, it is important for me to make sure that they understand the circumstances and if there's recommendations to keep them safe for that type of thing, but then also to make sure that they understand, when the recommendation is not based on, a life-threatening circumstance, that keep staying pregnant, even in the face of something terrible, sometimes is best for the family, the family's well-being and their baby's well-being.
I want to ask you this. Do these people come to you because maybe another OB-GYN sent them to you, a recommendation, or their medical doctor? Do you send people over to somebody else that does abortions if the person wants an abortion? How does this dynamic work out?
Yeah. Most frequently, so I work with some of the crisis pregnancy centers in the city where I practice. And so women will go there for support, an ultrasound, resources, that type of thing. And then if they need a doctor, then those types of centers will send them, over to my practice.
So you have a connection with the pregnancy resource centers?
Yes, quite a few of them.
And so they'll send folks over to you. All right, now listen, folks. You can see that Dr. Kate is very much involved with people who are sent to her from pregnancy centers. And we have some wonderful pregnancy centers right here in Collier County and in Lee County. So there is a pregnancy center probably within a couple of miles of us right here in Collier County. CPCI, that's a big one over here, okay? We have the Immokalee Pregnancy Center that's over here. And we have the Pregnancy Resource Center that's over here, plus other centers located in Lee County. So if you know someone that's pregnant, there are pregnancy resource centers available, and these resource centers will put you in touch with great doctors like Dr. Kate Carnahan. Okay, now, doctor, you are involved with the Charlotte Lozier Institute, a very, very fine organization, folks, and you are also involved with the Heritage Foundation. So first, tell us about what do you do with the Charlotte Lozier Institute?
Well, Charlotte Lozier is kind of the research arm for the Susan B. Anthony Foundation, and they do really spectacular work. I would say right now in my career, I'm kind of peripherally involved with them. I'm an associate scholar, um, but they do wonderful research into the impacts of abortion. They look at state laws and kind of just provide that evidence-based piece. One project that I was involved with for them, which was just spectacular, is they did a focus um, on human development. And so entirely rooted in the science, it is 100%, scientifically accurate, put together by people with PhDs, and just walk through human development and what happens week by week as a fetus is developing. When they can start to hear, when they start to feel pain, when they have fingernails, just teeny tiny little details of human development, which is really fascinating. So,
okay, it's a fantastic organization, folks. And,
yeah.
They really put out some very, very, very good information. So I want you to keep them in mind. If you need information, they're the folks to go to. All right. Now, the Heritage Foundation. What do you do with the Heritage Foundation?
Well, I'm not formally involved with Heritage anymore. I was a health policy analyst a while ago. Now I just, write from time to time for them. So I recently wrote a piece for their blog post just about language and how to think and talk about abortion in the wake of Dobbs. But Heritage is a 501c3, so they are involved with policy recommendations, not so much politics.
As you can imagine, producing this wonderful program, Action for Life, it costs a great deal of money. We're going to need your help. So if you would like to donate to keep this good news program on the air, please go to your computer, your cell phone, actionforlife.net. Our thought for the day: I hope that all of you have Bibles in your home. The Bible is the Word of God, and there's nothing more powerful than God's Word. Keep it in a prominent place to remind you that you are part of God's good news and that God is using you to do His will. Hey gang, I know a lot of you sometimes can't watch all of our episodes of Action for Life. However, we have a solution for that. All you have to do is go to YouTube and search for Action for Life Florida. And you can catch up on all the shows, and guess what? Extra added bonus, you get to hear my weekly homily. So YouTube and you make a fine couple. So let's talk about, you work for the Charlotte Lozier organization, pro-life organization. And as I said, it's just a great organization to obtain resources. Then you say you used to work for the Heritage Foundation, now you just do some writing for the Heritage Foundation, which is fantastic. That's a first-class operation. I've been to their headquarters in Washington in the past. Now, you say that as a pro-life doctor, you can help win the abortion debate. What do you mean by that? How do you do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think that in the wake of Dobbs, a lot of people have kind of had this misconception that Roe versus Wade is gone, and now abortion is something that's decided, it's over, and understanding that truly the discussion about where our country is going to land on abortion is really now just begun. This is now a state by state discussion, and each state might become more pro life in the wake of the lot of Roe versus Wade going by the wayside, might become more pro choice or more pro abortion. And we have seen that in some states. And so I think it's really important for those out there who are pro life to really understand this issue well and to understand the messaging that's occurring in the wake of Dobbs. And something that I've seen that's been very concerning to me as a physician is that I think a lot of language is kind of being used for political purposes to scare women, to scare, people.
Okay, folks, pay attention, folks. Language. They try to take over the language and they make something that looks bad to be something that's good. So, Kate, tell us about language. How do they manipulate the language?
Yeah, so I think, the biggest thing is that a lot of pregnancy complications that women experience commonly have become lumped into the conversation about abortion. And what I'm talking about are things like an ectopic pregnancy, which is where a pregnancy starts to grow inside of a woman's fallopian tube instead of in her uterus, which is a life-threatening condition for the woman and a circumstance that can never result in a healthy, viable pregnancy where a baby could grow and survive outside the womb. And the other circumstance is a woman going through a miscarriage, which is where if there ever was a fetus in the uterus to begin with, it's passed away. And something that I've seen messaging, and I thought, well, this kind of thing is ridiculous. This will never take root. People will see right through this. But in the last few months, I've actually seen a lot of patients who are really genuinely worried that they're not going to get medical care for those types of things because they're considered as part of under the bigger umbrella of what an abortion is.
So you're telling You're telling us that the pro-abortion crowd is saying that you can't even have an ectopic pregnancy removed, and the pro-abortion crowd will also say that you can't even have a scraping after a miscarriage. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yeah, I think that that's kind of the messaging, is that these are all the same thing. And some of the procedures are similar. So sometimes we're using similar tools to treat women with these complications as are used during an abortion. But just because the tool is the same doesn't mean that what you're doing is the same thing. And morally, there's clearly a huge difference between keeping a woman safe after she's undergone a miscarriage and ending what would otherwise be a healthy, viable pregnancy.
Okay, so it's lie after lie after lie, trying to confuse people and saying, well, that's why we need to have abortion, because look at this. Those pro-life people don't want women even to be safe with an ectopic pregnancy. Is that's what's going on, right?
I think that that's probably kind of part of it, is that.
Wow. You see, Father O, folks, has been around a long time. I could smell a rat a mile away. Okay, continue.
Yeah, I think that by confusing people about the differences between these types of conditions, I think people who have women in their life that they care about, any decent human being who hears, oh, now we're going to let a woman die who has an ectopic pregnancy would say, well, we can't let that happen. So I guess I'll support everything that falls under this umbrella if it means keeping women safe.
Okay, you see?
Which is not what we're talking about.
Lie. You lie long enough, people begin to believe it, folks. Okay, what else do you run into? The big lie machine that the pro-death crowd puts out.
I would say I think that that's the biggest thing I've seen most recently. I think another area where women are being confused and misled is whether or not like hormonal contraception is still going to be available or not under certain abortion laws. And from what I have seen, I don't think that is something that has been addressed in any laws. And so a lot of hormonal medications we use to treat medical problems like heavy bleeding that can put a woman's life at risk, even outside of the question of pregnancy. And so, women are scared that those things are going to go away, or that those things are not available either anymore, when we do still have those treatments, at our fingertips.
So a woman comes to you and she's having some kind of a difficulty. All right, let's just say some kind of a difficulty. And
Okay.
with what the pro-death side is saying, you can't go to that doctor because that doctor is pro-life, and they're not going to give you the drugs that you need to get better. And the laws are designed that they will ban these drugs that you need to get better. Is that what's going on?
I think that there is definitely messaging that is trying to scare women into thinking that those types of medications won't be available.
Okay, what kind of medications do you talk about? So, lady comes into you and says, "I'm bleeding." What do you do?
Well, so it would depend if the setting, it depends on a lot of things, but it would depend on if the bleeding was related to a pregnancy loss. So, that's a good example. There's a medication that we use to help the bleeding stop, help a pregnancy loss end quicker and more safely. And, availability of those medications has been called into question, whereas, that's not a problem.
So the medications are
we have
available,
access to those
and
life-saving
doctors
medications.
like you would prescribe these medications.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you
Without
see
question.
folks, they come out and say, "Oh, women are going to die. Women are going to die. They don't want these medications around anymore." Dr. Kate says that's a lot of. I'm going to give you a technical term, folks. The technical term is baloney. Baloney. You hear her? She's right here telling you she can write a prescription that you can get what you need. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. You've been doing this now for 7 years. You began the program talking about, there are the red states, the blue states, basically, all right? Look in your crystal ball. You say that, with the truth, you can help end abortions, or at least how to win the abortion debate. We've talked about a divide in the country between states that allow abortion, states that don't allow abortion, and some states that have different restrictions on abortion. Now, how would you convince people in abortion states that, with the information that you have, that really there's no reason why they should fear the pro-life cause?
Well, I think that the important thing is to look at where the American people stand on abortion. And, most Americans are not at one end or the other. But I would argue that most are closer to the pro-life side than the pro-choice side. The concept that abortion should be legal up until a full-term pregnancy is just crazy. And I think like 6% of people in this country think that makes sense. And so I think in addressing, there are a lot of Americans who don't approach the issue from the same philosophical background or biological background as I would. But I think in talking about the topic with them, I think the question really is, if you're choosing between two extremes, which extreme is more life-giving, is more supportive, is more in keeping with our basic humanity? And I think that the pro-life movement can and should really focus on compassion and care for women. In talking about these issues where scare tactics are kind of employed, I think we have really a big opportunity to say absolutely not. We would never want a woman to be harmed by a complication of a pregnancy that she had no control over. And then that kicks us back into the true topic of whether or not it's okay to end a human life while it's still in the womb. And that's what we should really be discussing, not these peripheral kind of scary issues where they're just being used to kind of push people towards an extreme that truly I don't really believe that they agree with. So
okay, folks, you've heard, from Dr. Kate Carnahan. I'm going to call her the Doogie Howser of OB-GYNs. And, she's telling us the full truth, the full story of how the big lie gets out there. Listen, women can be taken care of for their needs. They can also have the prescriptions that they need, the medical procedures that they need. All you have to do is get out the right information. So, Dr. Kate is for action, I'm for action, and I know you are too. We would like to thank our generous sponsors for their wonderful support. Thanks for watching. Please join us next time for Action for Life. I'm for action, and I hope you are too. I'm Father Michael Orsi. I am your host for Action for Life Television, that good news program which talks about the gospel of Jesus Christ, the big G, and the little g, all the good things that people are doing to put the gospel of life into action. So please join us for the next episode of Action for Life.